Hello and welcome to Natural Creativity Center's parent workshop about screens. This is the #1 topic requested by our families, and I hope that you will get something out of this presentation. Okay, the things I'll cover in this presentation include general ideas, things to consider around screen use in your home, resources that are available for you and that I use to make this presentation, how NCC applies its philosophies to the concept of tech and screen use, what other parents are doing. This is based on research I've done and what I've heard about, how to run a family meeting around this topic, safety tips to keep in mind as your young people gain more screen access, and an opportunity for parent sharing and problem solving. So things to keep in mind. You're probably here because you have some fears around the exploding use of technology in our homes and how it is a critical part of so many of our homes and lives now. Your fear of new technology and your concerns around how to raise a conscious young person are nothing new. Every time there's a new development in technology, there is also new developments in fear and confusion and concern and hope around the use of that technology. So all that being said, you're right where you're supposed to be, and also the kinds of technology and internet algorithms that we use these days are designed to manipulate and dysregulate their users so that they will use it more. So yes, this is traditional fears attached to current technology, to new technology, and also the new kind of technology that we are dealing with is especially pernicious. Other things to keep in mind: you never raise the same young person twice, and you're raising them in a different landscape than you were raised. So if you were pulling your hair out thinking, well, my childhood wasn't like this and I turned out okay, they don't need these things. Yes, this is true. And they live in a different world than you do. So they will experience it differently and face different challenges than you do. And their technology is a tool and it is a strategy to meet needs. Needs are never wrong. And the strategies that we use to meet needs may clash. So this may be the cause of power struggles or concerns you have in your home around screen use. But technology itself is a tool and it's a strategy. And sometimes it meets those needs really well. Sometimes it does not. If your goal is monitoring, wanting to know everything that they're doing online or how often they're using it or things like that, that kind of an attitude often creates secrecy. There are lots of workarounds that even younger children can figure out. And monitoring without much thought will create the opportunity for secrecy. Thoughtless restriction begets scarcity. So overall, you want to be a mentor, not a monitor or some kind of a helicopter always looking over their shoulder. That does not create conscious users of technology. It creates secretive users of technology. Don't be afraid to set boundaries around technology use and support the adjustments that they will inevitably experience as they come up against these boundaries. Some boundaries you may include are restrictions to certain content or language, the timing of when or how long somebody is using a screen, whether screens are used during meal times, and how screens interact with these sleep and bedtime routines. Any of these areas might be opportunities for boundaries. You'll probably set more when they're younger, and then as they grow older, you may invite them more into decision-making and self-advocacy around these areas. But it's okay to set boundaries, and it's okay if they get upset around these boundaries. It is okay to support them through these upsets. Somebody being upset at a boundary is not the same thing as the boundary being wrong. If you find that a boundary is constantly being an upsetting aspect of a young person's day, that may be an opportunity to bring them more into the boundary setting process. Not all screen time is created equal. There are really wonderful ways to use screens that are creative and generative and connecting. It's not just passive consumption. There's lots of opportunities for socializing. That's probably how most adults use it and how you use it for the most part. And because your young people are self-directed, the internet is probably going to be a frequent teacher that they turn to, and a portal to all the sorts of interesting things that they want to learn about and you may not know much about. So it could be a really wonderful tool in that way. There is a difference between a young person spending an hour creating an animation on an animation program and an hour spent watching a passively watching a TV show. So it's important to think about the different ways that young people and all of us engage with technology, and some really have similar value to picking up a book and reading or talking with a friend in person. Everything is a phase. You may think that your young person's attachment to screens or certain games or apps or things like that, that's going to be what they're into forever. It's not the case. You've probably already seen them grow into and out of different phases. You could probably track your own flow in and out of certain tech interests. Who they are now is not who they will always be. What they're interested in now will not always be their interests as well. Your relationship with tech is an extremely important model to how they will engage with tech. If you are constantly checking your phone, especially during meal times or conversations or when you're driving, if you are looking at work emails after hours, all these sorts of things are things that they see, and something to consider as well, that they are not the only ones who are susceptible to the immediacy and urgency of screens. You are as well. And some of the questions that I propose in this presentation for family meetings later also apply to parents as well. So all of this is about facilitating a positive tech ecosystem in the home for everybody, not just for young people. So the resources that I used for this presentation, and which you may be interested in, the first is called Screenwise, Helping Kids Thrive and Survive in Their Digital World. This is based on the word streetwise. So it's about raising digital natives, which is the author, Dr. Devorah Heitner's website. The idea that young people are growing up as digital natives, screens are a part of their lives, they are fluent on internet, but also need coaching and need mentoring. She has a wonderful blog at raisingdigitalnatives.com that has answers and ideas for all sorts of things. I signed up for the 7-day family tech reset, which sent me a email each day about how to approach looking at your digital life, first as an adult and then with your family. I found it really helpful. She's got lots of great ideas and templates on her website, including phone contracts, how to think about your young person getting a phone, how to talk with them about talking to strangers online, what to do when your young person is upset by something they've seen on social media, stuff like that. I also looked at the book called 14 Talks by Age 14, which has all kinds of interesting chapters around different topics, and I focused on the chapter about technology. This is where a lot of the family tech meeting ideas came from. Child Mind Institute has specific healthy limits and articles and research around healthy limits, especially for younger minds, around what's the maximum amount of screen time that is okay for them to use, things like that. commonsensemedia.org is a great website to look at reviews about media, books, movies, TV shows, video games, and whether those things are appropriate for different ages. It gives exact information about language, violence, themes, adult content, positive, negative messages, things like that. And there's also good research around how to find good media. Also, these authors are on, if you don't want to read the book, they're all on podcasts and blogs and articles. There's lots of ways to get their information. But I especially encourage you to find thinkers and experts who are promoting a conscious understanding of technology, because just cutting people off or saying no or restricting without much thought is not really a workable solution long term. So, and if you are really concerned, even though I just said not to do this, if you are really concerned and feel like you need to start fresh with your young person and their relationship with screens, or your relationship with screens, consider a tech fast. Here are 2 sample ways that some people think about them. One is a complete fast, as described in Reset Your Child's Brain, a 4-week plan to end meltdowns, raise grades, and boost social skills by reversing the effects of electronic screen time. This is a 4-week plan that you can follow if you are looking to restart your young person's relationship with screens. And if you're looking for a regular reset for the family, some families consider things like no screens at mealtime or on after a certain hour, certain vacation times, things like that. You can consider also a family tech Sabbath, 1 day a week, as described in Tiffany Schlane's book 24/6, giving up screens 1 day a week to get more time, creativity, and connection. And a tech fast could be instituted at any time, as long as people understand what it's about and when it ends. They can be really rewarding opportunities for whole families to reconnect with what they like to do off screens as well. Consider this. Teaching your child to have a positive relationship with technology may feel unnatural to you. Don't worry about it. Forget about the tech and focus on basic human behaviors you want your child to follow, whether in real life or on a screen. I really stress focusing on the philosophies and underlying tenets of a family's tech policy and practices, so that when there are arguments or lack of clarity later, you have a foundation to refer to that's not just based on strict time limits or content limits. There's more thought should go into it. NCC's perspective. We view technology as a strategy to meet needs. Every strategy has some positive aspect, and all needs are valid. So sample needs that technology might meet are rest, ease, play, connection, creativity, contribution, privacy, all sorts of things. And all of these needs are valid, and technology is a very effective tool to meet a lot of these needs. The clashing may happen when tech meets a need for one person, but serves as a barrier for another person to meet those same needs. So a young person may be connecting with their friends by texting them, and that meets their need for connection. Parent might have a need for also for connection with their child, and it may not be met if the screen is in the way. So that's an example. NCC views adults as facilitators, both in the self-directed learning aspect and with technology. We want them to grow a conscious relationship with technology, and our role as adults is to guide them through tech literacy with collaboration and boundaries. So rather than this top-down approach of screens are bad in these ways, screens are good in these ways, you should only use them in these good ways and only for this amount of time, and I don't want to hear anything you have to say about it. Not really a back and forth two-way collaborative relationship. We view much more conversation, understanding, connection, collaboration. We also believe at NCC that learning is everywhere. It doesn't look just like an educational program that they're doing, an educational app or game. It doesn't just look like doing homework, which we don't really do anyway. Creative programs, media analysis, social media behaviors, decisions around apps, understanding how games work, understanding how to improve in a game, watching somebody else get better at a skill, learning about the world, everything. All of these are opportunities for learning, and we don't want to silo education and learning into certain categories. These are acceptable learning behaviors and these are not. We don't really know what captures a young person. Really only they can say what it is. And we may not understand everything that they do or why it's interesting to them. But if they're into something, it's probably because they're learning from it. And we encourage you to approach that with curiosity rather than judgment or assumptions about what they're getting out of something. Young people want and deserve to be active participants in their own lives. They want to discuss and learn from you without judgment or overreactions. Yes, these young people may be digital natives. That doesn't mean they understand everything that they're encountering on the internet, and definitely want some wisdom and some guidance from adults, especially around how people talk to each other online, what to do when you make a mistake online, either you miscommunicated something or did something impulsive, maybe in a social media comment or something like that. They want to understand why people make certain things or say certain things online. And they would like to talk about these and learn about these things from you without the overarching idea of, well, this is silly, or you shouldn't be worried about this, or if you weren't doing this, you wouldn't be bothered by it. Those are dismissive ideas that don't really consider the young person's personal attention and interest in something. Play is work. So similar to the idea that learning is everywhere, online games are a socially acceptable way for young people who have passed out of the imaginative play dress-up part of their development. Online games become an acceptable way for them to use their imagination, build relationships, have privacy away from their parents. And so a game may seem silly or inconsequential to you, but it may be very important to them and for them to understand the world and to engage with other people. NC always promotes focusing on process over product. So focusing on a young person's decisions and developments around a tool is always more important than what the tool is. that's itself. So we're always focused on the why and how they're doing something rather than the what that they're doing. You will not share all of the same interests as your young person. So, but you do have the option of engaging with them in why they're doing certain things, how they're doing things, what they're getting out of it. All of these can be opportunities for conversation. And you don't have to figure this out on your own. NC exists to create a community for self-directed families, which can be an inherently isolating position. So can figuring out the tech agreements and ecosystem for your home. You don't have to do it all on your own. If there's another adult in your house, you can do it with them. And of course, use the young people in figuring this out. NC is also available for helping you figure out your tech ecosystem, lifestyle agreements, whatever it is you're looking for. Understand more about how NCC and nonviolent communication overlap, have universal human needs that we seek to meet through available strategies in our environment, internally and externally. If the needs are met, we'll feel positive feelings. If the needs are not met, we'll feel negative feelings. I invite you to think about the idea of the screen or technology as a strategy to meet a need. These are ways for the whole family to become more mindful about how a screen is a strategy to meet a need and how that strategy may work well sometimes and other times may not. So these are ways. In general, bring non-judgmental mindfulness to their feelings and needs when asking for screen use or you notice them zoning out. So let's say they ask for a screen, that's outside of the existing agreements. Can I use the tablet to watch something? Ask, what are you feeling right now? And if you haven't done this already, I encourage you to print out the Center for Nonviolent Communications feelings lists and needs list for your home. Put it all around so that you can point at it. And if they don't have the ability to read yet, you can find versions of the list online that have emojis and faces. You may also ask, what needs are alive in you right now? Let's say they state a need out loud. You don't have to jump to fix it. Screen use does not have to be the only strategy available. Just acknowledge, okay, you've shared a little bit about what your feelings are. I hear that your needs are X, Y, and Z. Emotional literacy takes time to develop. So these questions may not land every time. And if you aren't getting many answers in this around screens, bring it into the rest of your life as well. If somebody asks for a snack or at any point in the middle of a dinner, in the 10 minutes after waking up, you can ask these questions. You can state your own feelings and needs out loud as well. Bring emotional feelings and needs literacy into the home at every chance. Escalated times, de-escalated times, up times, down times, anytime. I hear you say that you're bored and you would like to watch something. Tech time is over. I'm curious about what else might engage you. Tell me more about your boredom. These are possible questions you can rely on if you're trying to stall and don't want to give it to the request right away because of whatever reason you have. It's outside of the agreements. You know that they are winding down for bedtime. You know that they're having a feeling that they need some time to work through. If they say that they're bored and that's why they want something, that's okay. Boredom is not the end of the world. As a self-directed learner, they're going to encounter some boredom, and that's okay. It is a necessary aspect of life that is the step before curiosity and engagement happen. So it's okay if they're bored. You don't have to fix it with a screen. That's theirs to figure out. Make a visible list of activities that they enjoy or goals that they're working on, something you can point at and say, well, I remember last time we talked about this, you said that you wanted to learn calligraphy. Why don't you get your pen and practice that? You said you were working on a Lego house that was going to be 3 feet tall. Why don't you go do that? Things like that. Help them become more aware of how screens affect them. So track moods after using screens. You can make a color chart with different colors signifying different emotions. They can circle different faces or draw different faces and evaluate the data. Maybe they feel good after an hour of screen time, and maybe at 90 minutes, they feel less good, and at 2 hours, they feel really upset after. That's data for them to consider. Ah, yes, okay, I know I feel better after 1 hour, but I don't feel good after 2 hours because I'm too drained or I'm lethargic or it's too overstimulating. I noticed that you're having a hard time putting your tablet down after 45 minutes, which is our agreement. What would help? Would you like a warning or no warning? Some young people really like knowing that there's 5 minutes left in their agreement. Some really do not. And hearing that they have 10 minutes left increases the anxiety to the point where they the thought of getting off the screen is too much, in which case they may not want a warning, but ask them and try things out. Consider a screen fast experiment. Maybe it's 4 weeks long, maybe it's 1 day a week, maybe it's for a week for the whole family, maybe it's after a certain time. Take notes as a family about what happened. Did people rediscover old interests? Did they get into something new? Did they experience boredom and make friends with it? Whatever. And before demanding something about their use, for example, get off your tablet or turn it down or don't watch that, get clear about what you're needing and feeling in that moment, and then make a request if necessary. Here are some ideas about what other parents are doing around screens. Remember, everyone is as confused as you are. So some of these things might work for a family for a few months, and then something changes and they got to try something new. That's okay. A system not working anymore because young people are growing up and changing, or there's new technology or new apps or new interests, it's understandable. You're probably not going to have the same tech time agreement for your child's whole life. Here's some things to keep in mind for setting boundaries with younger ones. You will probably set more of the boundaries when they are younger, and they may have more vocal upset at these boundaries. That's okay. Stay firm, bring in the emotional literacy aspect of it so that they can start to understand how their body reactions or tantrums are connected to their feelings and needs. If they get upset at a boundary, sit with them, repeat the boundary, echo their feelings, and give them space to feel the full feeling. Being sad, being upset, being frustrated, being angry are normal. It's okay. You don't have to fix it. Later, as they've moved through the feeling, bring it to their attention that they had this feeling, help them connect the needs and feelings that they're experiencing with the behavior around screen time. Allow for flexibility as well. If having them watch another episode, it gives you enough time to exercise or take a shower or finish that phone call, okay. You don't want to be so rigid that you smother the point. You don't want to be so rigid that you're not available or having enough time for yourself. Some families I've heard of do 2 dinners where the young people eat earlier and then they go off to watch something or play a game or something on a screen while the adults eat later and talk on their own. That's a possibility. Talk about what they see in shows and videos. Surprisingly advanced and mature content can appear in media for younger ones as well, and they may not understand it, or they may be internalizing messages that they don't even realize. Everything they watch can be an opportunity to discuss something. Do something big and physical at the end of screen time so that they reconnect with their body. Maybe this is a jumping jack, maybe this is, or a bunch, maybe this is skipping, maybe this is going to the park, maybe this is dancing, maybe it's a big hug or a big sigh. You want to reconnect them to their body. Plan for something fun after screen time, and structured time overall on the internet on a screen is better than unstructured time. So rather than, okay, you have it for an hour, do whatever you want, consider how about 30 minutes of Minecraft and then we go to the park or something like that, so that they have an idea of what they're doing, what's expected of them, they have a goal and direction, and it's not so loose that they wander into something that doesn't have a set end time. And find podcasts and audio experiences that allow media engagement without the eyes. So diversify what they're taking in. There's lots of great things on YouTube that they can listen to. There's podcasts, there's audiobooks, all sorts of things. So I've mentioned things like agreements, policy, family meeting, things like that. How do you know when it's time to do one? Well, let's find out. If you're experiencing persistent complaints or unmet needs around the topic of screens and tech time, it's probably time to call a meeting. And get clear with yourself before you do any of this. What are you worried about? What do you want? What do you hope? Invite every client who is affected by this, aka everyone in your family, to this meeting, and anyone else who might be interested, grandparents, friends. Be clear from the beginning about what's not on the table. Neither banning devices completely for good or unlimited screen use. So when those are off the table, hopefully people won't be so defensive. And detach from a specific outcome as well, about a tech time looking exactly like everything you want it to look like. Who knows? Keep it open at this point. And before you even get to the problem solving, idea generating, start with some exploratory questions. And then after that, if it's what people want, set time for a problem-solving meeting where you will design together your family agreements and schedule. You don't have to do it alone as well. If this feels daunting, or you're not sure you'll be able to not get defensive or stay open-minded, call the meeting with a facilitator at NC, and we can help you out. So these are some opening questions to consider before you even get to figuring out what the challenge statement is for your meeting. Pick a time where you can sit around as a family, or maybe it's in the car when you're driving somewhere, and talk about, for example, what ways are technology, is it useful and helpful for our family? How might it distract or derail us? I love the question of talk about your first exciting interaction with technology. And everybody in the family can answer these questions. The idea is to create dialogue and conversation and understanding that this is something that affects all of us. And we all see positives and negatives around this topic. When I asked some of these questions with the teenagers at NC when we were figuring out our teenage tech time policy, I was really impressed by how aware they were of the positives and negatives of technology use. They saw our lists of pros and cons are pretty much the same. And so it's very likely that young people are aware of the concerns that you have and would like to also talk about the positives so that this thing that they love is not demonized so much. I encourage you to avoid these statements when you are either talking about the questions from the previous slide or moving into the challenge statement problem solving part of the meeting. Too much screen time is bad for you. It's a very vague statement that ignores the quality versus quantity idea that not all screen time is created equal. And it distracts you from the goal of your engagement with screens, which is to figure out a balance that works for you and for the family. You're going to get addicted. This is often thrown around from adults from a position of fear or concern or confusion around their young person's use of technology. Addiction is an extremely loaded, heavy, complicated word, complicated mindset that is too complicated for what you're describing here, basically. It's way more complicated than that. It's addiction. The word addiction is a heavy, loaded word that that I don't really have the expertise to talk about or the interest in deciding about whether screens can be addictive, things like that. But just that it's pretty complicated, and it's one of those words that can really trigger a defensive response in young people. I don't want you to make a mistake that will follow you around your whole life. This has come up around parents concerned about how young people who communicate with others or use social media might leave a digital footprint. The concept of follow you around for your whole life is way beyond what a young person can really conceptualize at their age. Instead, it's important to focus on how what they're doing online affects their happiness today. So impulsively calling somebody out on social media in a cruel way affects their happiness now, affects their relationships now. Focus on that rather than the idea of, oh, this will end up on your college application and then you won't get it. You know, all that's pretty much further than they're thinking about right now. So the first step in a meeting is creating a challenge statement. So frame it around what you want to create, not what you're trying to get somebody else to do or not do. Get specific with your challenge statement. Is it about technology or is it about something else? Invite all clients to participate in creating the challenge statement together. Should commit to being open-minded and to giving balanced responses to ideas. All commit to revisiting the agreements at regular intervals, maybe a month after the initial agreement is set. And you can do more than one challenge statement and more than one meeting, certainly. Possible challenge statements include things like develop family guidelines around screen time for the week and weekend. Create opportunities for shared family time away from screens. Create a shared calendar around specific tech activities and post-tech activities. Create smooth bedtime morning routine for all. So some of these specifically mention tech, and some are not. They're around bedtime routines. They're around how the family spends time together. Another thing you can do is focus on a tech agreement that has these headings: shared commitments, acceptable online activities, shared tech times, shared tech free times, bedtime, car rides, how to get time warnings, ideas for board time, process for getting a phone. And this might be a way for the whole family to contribute ideas to smaller subsections of how we relate to technology. As you generate ideas, starting with how to, for these challenge statements or headings, don't shut any of them down, even if they seem ridiculous. All ideas are welcome. And as you continue on with this process, hopefully within a time limit, you don't want to let this go on too long because people can burn out. So I'd say 45 minutes maximum for this part. You'll see where there's energy around certain agreements, certain ideas and how-tos. Go towards the ideas that have energy. If you're not sure how something will work or an idea seems sort of possible, but you're not really sure, ask others if they have ideas about how they can fill the holes of this idea. If there is agreement and understanding and collaboration around certain ideas, they may move towards the possible solution stage. This would mean that the idea is feasible, that the clients know the next steps of how to implement it, and there's no major concerns. This is a possible solution. And you may get more than one in a meeting, you may not get one in a meeting, and you'll try again at the next one. That's okay. And set a date to return to the agreements, perhaps about a month later, to see how things are going. Now I'll talk about safety. We tend to fear the foreign space in which our kids are growing up and conflate our ability to constantly monitor them with their ability to protect themselves. Of course, monitoring and protecting aren't the same thing. If you're waiting to catch your kid before they fall down a hole, you're missing countless opportunities to talk about when unexpected new holes might appear and how to walk around them. So a lot of parents are rightfully concerned about their young person's safety on the internet. And here's what I have to say about that. If they have any unsupervised access to the internet, instruct them to talk to you if they see something disturbing or confusing or that they didn't mean to. This can be very specific. You may see something upsetting on the internet. I want you to come to me if that happens. I won't be mad, even if it's outside of the tech agreements. So you want to avoid the situation where they saw something, on somebody else's device or out of the time that you agreed on, or it wasn't what they said they were going to be doing. And because they're afraid that they will be punished or judged for what they did, they don't bring it up to you. And then this thing that they're confused about or disturbed about stays hidden, and you do not want that. You can get even more specific. If you see people without their clothes, people saying things that try to hurt people or people's feelings, or messages from someone you don't know, please come to me. The average age for initial exposure to pornography on the internet for a young person is 8 years old. It's probably earlier than you realized. And that's the sort of thing you want to prepare them for to talk to you about. So NC staff are available to facilitate your family tech policy meeting or to facilitate family tech conversations. This is a big topic that is not going to be solved in one meeting probably, and will take a lot of trials and adjustings. That's okay, we are here for that. Thanks for listening.